After sharing with us the miracle of the floating axe head, the author of 2 Kings now refocuses our attention on the king of Aram, or Syria, and his war plan against Israel. We're in 2 Kings chapter 8, today looking at verses 8 to 14. I'm Ken Godevanis, and this is Digging for Scriptural Gems. The king was telling his servants that he planned to camp at a certain place to attack the Israelites by surprise. The NET says he was asking his advisors for confirmation of his plans, who told him to attack Israel at that particular place. Somehow the man of God, we assume Elisha, got wind of the location, and so he sent word to the king of Israel telling him not to pass by there. And the king of Israel then sent word to that location, warning the people to be on their guard. And this happened on several occasions, saving the people from getting ambushed. And of course, the king of Aram gets very angry at this and calls his servants or advisors again and wants to know who the betrayer is. One of them tells him it is Elisha, the prophet who shares with the king of Israel whatever he says, even privately. The king of Aram then orders men to be sent to find him and capture him. He was told Elisha was hanging out in Dothan. Now, Dothan may sound familiar to you. It is where Joseph went to find his brothers in the field many, many years earlier, and it is just a little north of Samaria. The Syrian king then sent horses and chariots and a good-sized army. They arrived during the night and surrounded the city. We're going to stop there and see what gems we can find. I find it interesting that sometimes God's men and women must take on the role of an apparent spy. Certainly Elisha did. While he did not support the corrupt monarchs of Israel, he knew that it was even worse for Israel to be conquered and subjugated under Syria. Thus, he provided the king of Israel with a heads up based on divinely inspired espionage. According to commentator Chuck Smith, the Syrian king at that time was Ben-Hadad. He believed this intelligence by his enemy could only happen if there was a traitor among his own people. Only when he was told that it was Elisha who was doing the telling, he understood that it could have been a God thing. We also need to remember, as Dilday tells us, that at this time in Israel, quote, a more sensible king, Jehoram, now sits on the throne of Ahab, and the prophet of the Lord is no longer a dreaded antagonist, but the king's trusted counselor. Elijah, his predecessor, was a fugitive constantly on the run from a wrathful king, but now Elisha is a welcome visitor in Jehoram's court. Amazing how God orchestrates men, armies, prophets, and kings over periods of time for his purpose. And God is never in a hurry. How exactly did this heads-up information help the king of Israel? Well, Robert Jameson suggests the following. By adopting precautionary measures, Israel was always enabled to anticipate and defeat the Syrian attacks. The frequency of the king of Aram's disappointments in being foiled led him to suspect some of his own servants of carrying on a treacherous correspondence with the enemy. Once he determined the culprit was Elisha, he figured that however great the knowledge of Elisha might be, if seized and kept a prisoner, he could no longer give information to the king of Israel. Now, this is where I would paraphrase and utilize the saying, quote, never underestimate the power of God. Matthew Henry points out a key lesson for us from this passage. He says that here we see that the enemies of God's Israel are politic in their devices and restless in their attempts against him. They boasted that Israel shall not know nor see till we come in the midst of them and slay them. They're going to be surprised, Nehemiah 4:11, intending to stop all the work being undertaken by the Israelites. Well, friends, as we're watching the war between Israel and Iran that just recently happened on our TV screens, this verse cannot be ignored. but the tables are turned. Now it is Israel that acts in a way which prevents its enemies from being aware of or anticipating anything that they might do. Then Israel strikes them, and it is Israel that is now, either alone or with the help of others, likely to put an end to the undertaking of Iran's nuclear goals. God does have a way of protecting and leading his people. We'll end our short study today with Matthew Henry's astute observation from this passage. He suggests that here, in the words of the servant who identify Elisha as the one giving Israel information, probably because of having heard what Naaman had shared about Elisha and how Naaman got healed of his leprosy through Elisha, we have an unintended sharing of truth. Henry writes, quote, "Here is a confession of the boundless knowledge as before of the boundless power of Israel's God is exhorted from Syrians. Nothing done, said, thought by any person in any place at any time is out of the reach of God's cognizance." End of quote. Let me repeat that last sentence of Henry's. Nothing done, said, thought by any person in any place at any time is out of the reach of God's cognizance. I remember when I first started working with a very large corporation that I was told as part of my orientation I should be careful to never say anything to anyone that I would not be prepared to see in the headlines of Canada's largest newspaper the following morning. I took that to heart, and it saved me many times. Well, it is even more true when it comes to God's knowledge of our actions and words, and even our thoughts. Next time, we'll see what happens when Aram's army catches up with Elisha. Join us for that. In the meantime, if you like what you see in the way we study God's Word, please indicate so by liking our video, but also please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you'll know and be notified when the next YouTube is up. Thanks for watching, and above all, keep on studying God's Word.